How do children acquire language? That's one of the most important questions in all of linguistics, yet most people either have no idea or the wrong idea. Let's fix that. Hello, my name is Christopher and welcome to Ling, Linguistics for the layperson. In the last video we discussed how children don't acquire language, the wrong ideas so to speak, and in part 2 today we'll examine 3 current theories on how they do. You don't have to watch part 1 first, but I would recommend it for a more complete understanding. So, first off is the idea of active construction of grammar, by far the most influential theory among linguists today. It claims that children actually invent the rules for grammar on their own based on the assumption that language is innate, as discussed in a video last week. Basically, they listen to speech around them, identify patterns, and then hypothesize rules that account for them. This explains why a child might say hitted or goed as mentioned in part 1. He or she has inferred correctly that the allomorph ed indicates past tense, but has yet to discover the exceptions. Upon doing so, the child will modify the old rule or simply create a new one, repeating this process of speech development until his or her mental grammar matches that of an adult. Of course, children don't do this consciously, which is why reinforcing standard speech conventions often doesn't work. As also discussed in part 1, they must identify discrepancies between their speech and an adult's by themselves and adjust the mental grammar accordingly. Thus, a child raised by parents who use non-standard English double negatives will very likely do the same. Now, there are some popular competing ideas, such as Connectionist theory, which argues that children acquire language by creating neural associations between the words, meanings, and sounds to which they are exposed. For instance, perhaps a child says goed not because he or she has an imperfect internal rule about the ed suffix, but by associating the sound with words like showed, mowed, and toad, making goed statistically probable. Some strong evidence for this theory comes from experiments in which children were asked to create the past tense of non-existent English verbs like to fring, and a significant number created irregular forms like frang or fraught. Whereas active construction of grammar theory might expect a child to produce only fringed, Connectionist theory can make sense of the result based on the child's guaranteed exposure to phonetically similar irregular verbs like sing, ring, and bring. And finally, there's social interaction theory, which asserts that children acquire language by interacting with adults, especially through child-directed speech, known informally as baby talk or mother-ease. That slow, repetitive way of talking with a simplified syntax, vocabulary, and exaggerated intonation may actually be crucial for children to develop the rules of language. In that sense, it's similar to the first theory, but really stresses the type of social interaction that children receive. Here's a wonderful example from my textbook that highlights the style of this speech. Example 1. See the birdie? Look at the birdie. What a pretty birdie. Example 2. Has it come to your attention that one of our better-looking feathered friends is perched upon the windowsill? When addressing an infant, most adults in the West, especially mothers, would of course say something closer to the first than the second, all while pointing to the birdie to better convey the information. This type of interaction helps the infant figure out what the speech might mean. Now that I think of it, it's sort of similar to Stephen Krashen's approach of comprehensible input. Now here's the thing. None of these theories are mutually exclusive. And personally, I think the real answer is at least a combination of all three. Of course, proper socialization matters to a child's development in nearly all regards, but children can also actively construct a mental grammar by making use of statistical data and neural connections. They are smarter than they seem. And that's how children do acquire language. Alright, that's all for today. Please give this video a like if you learned something, and let me know in the comment section what you think of these ideas. Are you drawn to any particular theory? Are you unconvinced by another? What would you like for me to discuss next? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the next video. My sources are in the description, and as always, thank you so much for watching.